And yet you've had the guts to stand out here and consistently badger me with, that's just your opinion, that's just your opinion. And yet you can be so intellectually inconsistent as to sit there now and acknowledge, well, I just think it's that way. I just sort of think
Cliff.
it's that way. Opinion?
Yes.
Yeah, well, there's an opinion that's based on a little study, and then there's an opinion that's based on raw bias and emotionalism.
Welcome to Cliff's most intense debate. This discussion gets heated, so stay tuned. Share your thoughts in the comments below. This clip is from Give Me an Answer, so go check them out. Let's dive straight into it.
There was Gnosticism. There were the Gnostic Gospels, Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Barnabas, that were written. And the eyewitness community and those who knew the eyewitnesses rejected the Gnostic Gospels because their picture of Jesus was colored by the philosophy of Gnosticism, which taught physical is evil, spiritual is good. And obviously, both the Old Testament and Jesus taught both the physical and the spiritual are good because God created both. The Bible has a very positive view of sex. Why? Because it's God who created our bodies. It's God who created us as sexual beings. And the Gnostics said, no, the physical is dirty. It's evil. The spiritual is good. And both Jesus and the Old Testament authors said, no, God is the creator of both the physical and the spiritual, therefore both are good.
I guess the specific one that I'm talking about, the one that I've heard about, although I haven't read, was some sort of an account of Jesus turning a bird into a shower of coins or something of this nature. And so would you agree anyway that there were a lot of accounts on Jesus' life that were written by people around that period of time, by early Christians, and not all of them made it into the New Testament? Because some of them were deemed to be false.
Correct.
So if I truthfully was to pick up the New Testament and read it, what I would be reading then would be a group of works that a group of human beings got together and decided were the true representations of the life of Christ.
When you read the Gospels, you're reading a series of books that the eyewitnesses, those who saw Jesus, those who heard him teach, and those who knew the eyewitnesses, accepted as reliable, historical, authentic narratives.
4 people? 4 Gospels?
4 Gospels.
4 eyewitnesses.
No, Luke was not an eyewitness.
Okay, so how many witnesses are there? How many people's individual testimony am I basing this faith on?
Well, in 1 Corinthians 15, the Apostle Paul writes, Jesus appeared to over 500 people risen from the dead, most of whom are still living. In other words, if you don't believe, if you can't take it from me, go out and talk to one of those people. So there were hundreds of people that Jesus appeared to risen from the dead. Now, in the New Testament, we have the eyewitness testimony of Matthew, Mark, John, Peter, James. Those are 5 eyewitnesses.
Okay. Now, the thousands of people that Muhammad led, and the thousands of people that witnessed his acts, and also believed that he was the Son of God through their eyewitness accounts, and the thousands of people who see the Hare Krishna and believe that is, or the Dalai Lama, and believe that the Dalai Lama is truly the incarnation of the previous Dalai Lama. All of these people, and all of the people throughout the world, throughout history, that have personal accounts of their encounters with God. Why is it that you are willing to take this one piece of evidence and discount all the other evidence? I'm not saying that what you have isn't evidence. I'm just saying that your evidence is just as shaky and just as solid as all of the other evidence.
Well, how can you say that in light of the fact that you've not studied it?
From what I've come across, from what you're saying, you're telling me that it's the word of 5 people.
How, in light of the fact that you've not studied the Quran, the teachings of the Buddha, the Vedas, the New Testament, how can you sit there and say it's all equal in its validity?
I'm not saying it's all equal in validity. I'm saying, how can you claim that one is more than the other? Since I have not read every word of every single one of those, but I have read a little piece of all of them, some of all of them, I'm saying that I am only willing to at least classify them as equal. How can you have the audacity to come out and say that one of them is true while the others are false? I'm not making that claim.
But you are making the claim that they all are basically the same in their validity.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know that to be true. I'm saying with my limited perception, I am not willing to accept any one over the other.
Why?
Because all of them are based on the same pieces of evidence, and those are eyewitness accounts of people who were religious zealots or were involved in religious movements.
How do you know that in light of the fact that you've not studied it?
Extensively, I mean, that's a relative term. I've studied.
Fine. Why do you trust Muhammad? What is your evidence that Muhammad's reliable?
I don't trust Muhammad.
Why do you think that Muhammad is as reliable as Jesus?
I think that they're all equally unreliable.
Why?
Because they say things that I see as not being real. When I compare the stories that I hear about Jesus Christ or the stories that I hear about Muhammad, it doesn't make any rational sense to me, Cliff. When I see the world around me and the proof around me, those seem to be lying.
And yet you've had the guts to stand out here and consistently badger me with, that's just your opinion, that's just your opinion. And yet you can be so intellectually inconsistent as to sit there now and acknowledge, well, I just think it's that way. I just sort of think
Cliff.
it's that way. Opinion?
Yes.
Yeah, well, there's an opinion that's based on a little study, and then there's an opinion that's based on raw bias and emotionalism. Now, what kind of opinion do you have, man? Are you willing to study the Quran? Are you willing to study the New Testament before you make your conclusions? Or are you just going to emote and sit out here and say, oh, it's all just opinion? Or are you going to study evidence?
Cliff, I've been studying the evidence.
Well, then what is the evidence that Muhammad is reliable?
Cliff, I don't have that for you.
What have you found as a result of your study of the Quran?
None of them are reliable. What have I found?
Yeah.
Well, I found that the 4 or the 5 pillars of Islam are very similar, other than the Hajj, to morality and ethics that are believed by Christian people. As the 10 Commandments are very similar. I've found that societies that I've lived in, they have very similar types of ethics and moralities. They vary on different points.
Sir, the Quran contradicts the Gospels, flat out.
How's that?
In the Quran, Muhammad repeatedly writes, Jesus is not God. In the New Testament Gospels, Jesus claims to be God. A rather fundamental contradiction.
But doesn't Jesus claim that all other gods are false as well? Isn't that the exact same thing that Jesus is doing? Thou shalt worship no false idols?
Yeah, that's obviously the second commandment.
Isn't that the same kind of a thing, though, Cliff? Isn't that the same message given by a different person?
If I worship Jesus Christ according to Muhammad, I am an idolater. I'm worshiping an idol. Well, that's a kind of a fundamental contradiction, isn't it?
Well, I guess his point is it is a contradiction in the same way that worshiping Muhammad, if you're a Christian, would be bad. So the contradiction is what makes them
Yeah, but they're not all the same. They really are different. They contradict each other. And so therefore, we better study and find out, does the evidence point to Muhammad being more reliable? Or does the evidence point to Jesus being more reliable?
But you can't come out and say strongly as a fact, this evidence points to Jesus being more reliable. I mean, you can say that that's what you found in your studies, okay? And I'm not going to chastise you for that, Cliff. I'm not going to rail you for that. But if you come out and you say, I've looked at it and I've looked at everything, and this is just a fact and everything else is a lie, then what you're doing is you're saying something that you're stating your opinion as it's a fact, and it's not, man.
And you're stating one incredible bias and opinion, which is, it's all trash.
It's not all trash.
Yes, it is. It's all just opinion. It's all just bias, is what you're repeatedly saying to me.
It is all opinion, but it's not all
Well, what's the
trash.
basis for you saying that? Why do you say that? What's your evidence to back that statement up?
In fact, you said when we started this discussion today, you said that God is the Father. That's a fact. And yesterday, in contradiction to that, and today even, you said you can't prove that. I'm saying that they are all equally worthless and all equally valuable as opinions because they are all based in opinion. That none of them are based in fact.
That is such sloppy thinking, it's embarrassing. It really is. Because you're sitting here just making your own presupposition, which is, it's all equally the same. You don't take the time to study the different ones, to see the differences. And to ask yourself, what is the evidence that this is reliable? What is the evidence that this is not reliable? I mean, that's incredibly bigoted. For you just to, without studying all these different religions, say, well, they're all basically the same.
I do study all those religions, Cliff. I'm in the process of studying all
Well, then
those
answer my question. why do you believe that Muhammad is as reliable a source of information about God as Jesus is? Or any of the other options?
How many people in the world are Christian?
What does that have to do with it?
Well, this is what it has to do with it, Cliff. The small minority, what is it? Not even 1/5, not even 1 billion people on the planet are Christian. There are so many people in the world that believe in other religions. They spend their lives studying those manuscripts, and they believe that that evidence is more reliable than the evidence about Jesus Christ. And the Buddhists, who spend their lives studying those manuscripts, believe that that evidence is more legitimate. And when I see that, when I see a diverse population of people, and I see people devoting more time than I possibly could to one specific religion and believing that that is the truth, what I see is different people having similar evidence. It's a hung jury.
So, if you get a lot of people to believe about something, that means it's valid.
No, not at all.
Well, that's exactly what you've just said. You've just said, I see a lot of Buddhists who are sincere about that. I see a lot of Muslims who are sincere about that. Therefore, they're equally valid. Since when is truth determined by majority opinion or by a large number of people agreeing with it? I thought truth existed separate from people's opinion.
Truth does exist separate from people's opinion, but I am willing to trust that those people who have spent their lives studying those manuscripts really wholeheartedly believe to themselves that that evidence is the best evidence. Just like you do, because you've spent your life studying the Bible and you believe that to be true.
So that does not excuse you from your personal responsibilities to search for truth.
I do search for truth, Cliff.
Well, what have you found?
Of it every day.
As a result of studying the religious documents, what have you found?
What I have found is that different people believe different things throughout the world, and they all believe them with just as much passion. And they all use the same basis for their belief.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
Totally false. No Hindu claims that God has historically stepped into space and time. The Vedas and Upanishads are mythology, and it's communicated that truth is communicated through myth. So you see, your insincerity is coming out all over the place, Ben. It really is. You've not studied this stuff, and yet you're sitting there trying to appear like you have studied it all, and it's all the same. It's not, man.
But if I haven't said that, I said I am studying it. I am in the process of it. This is a wonderful educational experience for me.
Well, then what are your studies showing me?
Here's the one thing that I have found. I have found that there are billions of people in the world, and those billions of people believe hundreds and thousands of different things, and they all believe them with all their heart and all their passion. And all those things are equally valid because those people believe them. Their belief in those religions makes them valid and makes them right.
How can you honestly believe that? You think that something's valid just because someone genuinely believes it to be valid?
Yes.
Well, I hope you wouldn't tell the followers of Mr. Applewhite that. I hope you wouldn't tell the followers of David Koresh that. I hope you wouldn't tell the followers of Jimmy Jones that. That just because you got a sincere belief, that makes it valid and true. Come on, buddy. Wake up. Smell the coffee.
Cliff, call me a liberal, but I believe...
I didn't call you a liberal.
I believe people should have the freedom to express their religion however they want.
Absolutely. But that has nothing to do with concluding that something is true because some people believe it's true.
I didn't say true, I said valid. I never said true.
We're looking for truth, though.
But how will you find truth when you don't have a fact?
That's right. You've got so many presuppositions that are coming out of your worldview now, it's incredible. You can't really find truth. Validity is whatever someone genuinely believes. Garbage. If I believe that the marshmallow man on my left hand gives my life meaning, purpose, direction, and eternal life after death, that is invalid. Because in reality, there's no marshmallow man here on my left hand. And I don't care how sincerely I believe it.
Thank you for watching the video. Cliffe handles the students' doubts with grace and precision, addressing intellectual inconsistencies head-on. This intense debate offers valuable lessons for all viewers. Cliffe's patience and thought-provoking points are truly inspiring. All credit to Cliffe, and Give Me an Answer for the clips used. Be sure to visit their channel for more insightful discussions. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback is greatly appreciated.